What is going on, friends in good company? Welcome back to the cantina. Another late night feat. My man.
Hello there.
I'm Rissman.
How are
you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. Hope you are too.
I'm good. I'm excited for another night of shenanigans, another night of talking about some of the ridiculous things that go on in the Star Wars universe. It's kind of odd, man, when I think about what Star Wars has become from when I was a kid, and I can only imagine from when you were a kid to where it is now. So much has changed, and obviously the corporatization of Star Wars has come with a couple different changes, right? Namely, one of the big things for me is collecting and Star Wars experiences. Now, one of my favorite Star Wars experiences in the world was when I think I was 10 years old and I went to Disney World. And I remember riding Star Tours about 104 times with my buddy Tom as the new year was coming in. And that year was 1999 to 2000. So Y2K was supposed to happen. Everybody was going to die. Everybody was freaked out. But you could walk right past this giant AT-AT. It was like Endor. It was just everything just felt so Star Warsy. And that seems to have changed a little bit in terms of the tone that they're doing in these Star Wars parks. Now, you've been to Galaxy's Edge, right?
I've been to Galaxy's Edge quite a few times. I'm also happy to report that the AT-AT outside of Star Tours is spit in the water again. That was broken for a while.
Let's go.
Somebody finally, maybe because it got so hot here, they're like, you fit the water again.
Okay, so not all bad news. Not all bad news. Now, my question to you would be, as a Star Wars fan, I'm not going to call you an old Star Wars fan. I call myself an old Star Wars fan. You are a very young and vibrant Star Wars fan. How do you feel about the vibe of Galaxy's Edge in terms of the overall picture of Star Wars? Not just the sequel trilogy and what they've done with the park, but I'm talking about from, if you've known Star Wars your whole life, how do you feel like people would interpret that park?
Well, so I mean, Galaxy's Edge, they've themed it pretty well, right? So if you're walking through Galaxy's Edge, I mean, they have some background noises and just the way that they did the buildings and everything. It has a definite Star Wars feel to it, the marketplace that they did, and Doc Ondars and Ogas, and some of it looks really, really nice. Where they didn't do a great job in Galaxy's Edge is adding the Star Wars life into the picture.
Okay.
Right. So with the exception of, now again, they're doing it right, with the exception of Kylo Ren and a few stormtroopers who do walk around again, and now you can encounter Rey and Chewie, and then it's about two character Vi, and now recently Boba Fett and Fennec Shand also.
They added Boba and Fennec, huh?
Boba and Fennec are circulating, and then I think Mando, and I don't know about Grogu, but at least Mando, I'm sure Grogu in some way, but Mando is due to make an appearance here in the not too distant, and they've re-added the meet and greet. They reopened the launch bay where they have all of the artifacts and models as meet and greets, where you can once again meet and greet with Vader, Chewie, and BB-8.
Thank God.
Those were all very popular pre-pandemic, and then, of course, all meet and greets and character interaction ended. And when the parks reopened, they didn't bring any of that back, right? So there's a little more life now circulating through Galaxy's Edge,
as opposed to just Rey and Kylo walking around.
Yeah, well, and imagine there was nobody walking around for a while except for guests, right? And cosplay has traditionally not been permitted in the Disney parks, right? So it wasn't even guests in the Star Wars spirit, right? It was just walking around. Maybe I had a Star Wars shirt on, maybe I didn't, right? We're just walking around, milling about, looking at some of the stuff that was there, riding the rides, maybe having a bite to eat, and then exiting the area, right? So they really didn't do a great job, with the exception, of course, of seeing the Millennium Falcon parked there. I mean, that is pretty awesome, right? But it's parked there because it's an attraction, right? It's an attraction that you ride. They didn't do a great job of adding destinations within Galaxy's Edge, to me, that would attract a guest to spend an extended period of time in that part of the park.
Other than the shops, right?
Other than to spend money. Yeah.
Right. So spend money is obviously going to be a thing. It's a theme park, so we know that that's going to be a thing. Real quick, before we get any further into this, I want to say what's up to the chat. Hello, everybody. 2 Star Wars is here. Nick Holness, hello. My brother, Ronnie, my stepson, is here. He's not really my stepson, everyone.
Please don't claim
just letting you know. Leia Rose, Devil Actual, what is going on, everybody? Datboy Steve is in here. Johnny Wingate, hello. Rebel Scum Network, what's up, Jedi David? Glad to see everybody. And then we also have a super chat, $8.99 from Nick Holness. Here's some cheddar towards the production of the show so Matt doesn't have to lose his beard to budget cuts. Also, can't wait to see you guys at Celebration 23. Hashtag Justice for Wade. I really need to have a video for Justice for Wade. And I don't. And I kind of hate myself for that. I need to have that.
It's a lot thicker than I thought it was going to be.
Which kind of rolls us neatly. Thank you very much for that, Nick, by the way. That rolls us kind of neatly into the next segment here, where we're going to be talking about what can you buy from Disney regarding Star Wars, and what are some of the most outlandish offerings that Disney has when it comes to Star Wars. Now, I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that at Disney parks, on Disney ships, anything with the Disney name on it, you're going to pay at least 4 times as much for it when you go there, right? So cruises are like 2 to 3 times more expensive than other cruises. Drinks, which we're going to get into, can be up to 378 times more expensive. You just never know what you're going to get with Disney. But tonight I thought it'd be fun if we took a look at a couple of the more extra offerings that Disney has, starting with, obviously, the Galactic Star Cruiser. Now, we haven't talked about this for a hot minute, dude. It was in the public eye. Everybody was pissed off and riled up because they're giving us a sequel-themed hotel for $5,000 for 2 days, which is like, if I'm going to do that, I better be in like Taiwan. I get to kill somebody, inject some Komodo dragon venom, like, you know, jump off a building without a parachute and somebody saves me. Just, it's got to be insane. That doesn't seem to be what we get with a hotel.
And they just had to evacuate it recently for the first time due to fire alarm being pulled or something. And so
I didn't hear that.
So everybody had to shuffle out the side door, and they looked at the scaffolding and everything, and they were in the beating down sun because there's no shade there while they waited 30 minutes for them to clear and to be re-immersed, you know, back into the experience. So
I can just hear one of the Disney employees like, no refunds.
That's just it, right? I mean, that thing is so jam-packed on top of everything else, so you get thrown out of the immersion, and now the whole schedule is a bit shot, and then you have to get, again, I know shit happens, right? And there is a safety concern, and it's not like I want to see people, you know, suffering from smoke inhalation or whatever else might be going on, right?
Right. If it was real, yeah.
But when you think about it, it's hard to recover from that in a way that's going to make the guest happy. But yeah, it literally just happened, I think, last week.
Do you think Darth Melvin pulled the fire alarm?
It wouldn't surprise me.
It might have been Darth Melvin. Not 100% sure. So okay. So we already, like, we've talked about the Galactic Star Cruiser to death. What I haven't been keeping up on is it staying full? And that's something I don't know. I was trying to look on the internet to find statistics, any kind of data to see if maybe it was staying full. I don't actually know. If anybody in the chat has actually looked at the numbers, let me know, because I'm interested to hear. But there's another development, and for some reason they love that 5K number. They just love $5,000. We have another one. Hold on, let me pull this up here. This is just my favorite. This makes me so happy. $5,000 for a drink. The most expensive drink in the galaxy, the Star Wars Hyperspace Lounge on the Disney Wish, has a $5,000 Kyber crystal drink. Now, I think it's interesting. For one, they didn't even spell Kyber right, which I think is kind of weird.
It's not a misspelling. It's a real thing.
Okay, what's Kyber?
I looked it up because I thought it was a misspelling also, and you can look it up. It's a very specific, it's a crystal that gives you very specific kinds of powers. But no, it's not a misspelling.
Okay, so there's Kyber crystals and then there's Kyber crystals.
Apparently.
Do we know the origin of this spelling of it, or where it came from?
I just Wikipedia'd it to see was it a real thing, and they had a blurb on it, and I scanned it and moved on. So you can do the same if you want to see. I don't remember exactly the genesis of where it came from, but it wasn't, the genesis is not this drink. Whatever this crystal is, it did exist.
Okay, this Kyber is not the genesis. So you get this amazing Camtono, right? And the Camtono opens up. Ooh, and there's dry ice inside.
You don't get to keep the Camtono, by the way. That goes back.
That's the part that pisses me off. Like, if it was an automated Camtono, I could almost forgive this a little bit more, right? Like, okay.
Well, they probably only have the one that works, right? So
I'm assuming, yeah. And then the other one is always down for repairs, like everything else at Disney.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was the size of the drink. Now, it's important to note that what goes into this drink is redonkulously expensive alcohol, right?
Well, so there's two components right there. I think those are the shots. I'm not 100% sure which is what, but you get you get X number of drinks and X number of shots. I mean, those look like shot glasses, right?
Right.
And so you can, I think it's there in the same article, right? But regardless of that, the mixed drink appeared to be, an expensive kind of Grand Marnier and a couple of fruit juices.
Yeah, it was Grand Marnier Quintessence. There was some cognac, some fine cognac, kumquat, and then something else. It's not exactly like a super involved drink, but when you have good alcohol like that, you don't want to mess it up anyway. I think the
kumquat and the yuzu, I think that's fruit juice, right? I don't even think that's alcoholics. In this one, so yeah, I think you've got the cognac, and I think you've got the Grand Marnier, so it probably tastes like you're drinking a fruit punch. All right. So far, I'm not wowed. Right. So far, I'm not wowed to be drinking fruit punch.
Well, and that's the funny thing is that these bottles cost $5,000. But I would feel like if you had a extremely expensive alcohol like that, maybe just enjoy it on its own. Don't mix it with other ones. I feel like
the shots that they give you, one was a Pappy 23, and then there was a gin, and there was a couple of other things which I did look up, and they those bottles for those shots, right? They are again multi-$1,000 bottles. I've actually had some of those shots. Never paid for them myself.
Well, look at you.
And I wouldn't pay the money for the bottle or for the shot or for any of it, right? But even if you add all that together, the alcohol alone that you're getting in this experience doesn't come anywhere close to a couple $1,000.
But that's not the reason for the price of it, right? Because what comes with the drink is a ticket to Skywalker Ranch. Now, here's my question, and this is why I kind of themed this whole stream like Disney wants all your money and they're not going to tell you why. Have you been able to find any details onto what that ticket to Skywalker Ranch entails?
Other than you get two things, right? You get a bottle of wine from Skywalker Ranch.
You get a sparkling white.
And I think that wine is readily available for purchase, right? And I don't think it's very expensive. I think they just happen to operate a vineyard on the land that is near the building, Skywalker Ranch. And as far as what the rest of it is, since it's not a publicly accessible venue, and it seems to be one of these no phone, don't pick, no tell, no nothing.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah.
It didn't tell you anything about what happens when you show up there, what you can see, what's located there that might be interesting and exclusive. I just know it's for one person, and you must make your own way there, right? So Skywalker Ranch is located somewhere in California, right?
Yes.
So I mean, the cruise is in the Caribbean. It's not like you can somehow get off the ship and get to Skywalker Ranch.
There's got to be fine print on the bottom of a ticket that says you must redeem within 24 hours. So you got to get off that ship, get on a plane, get there like immediately.
Right. I mean, I know you're being facetious on 24 hours, right? But I would imagine there has to be some coordination just logistically, because I think they still do use Skywalker Ranch for meetups, and I think when we saw the behind the scenes on something. They were at, because Mark Hamill was there. They were all at.
Yeah, that was the Book of Boba Fett roundtable, or whatever they call that.
When they were all out on what looked to be a balcony of some kind, right?
Yeah,
I think that was at Skywalker Ranch, right?
It was, yeah. That was Filoni and George. They were at Skywalker.
Yeah. So it's still in use for some brainstorming and other collaborative purposes, right? But so yeah, you get, while the rest of the experience seems to be themed for more than one person, right? Because I'm not gonna drink all those drinks myself, right? I mean, it's the drinking part of the experience seems to be for more than one person.
I would drink them all myself.
Yeah, but the shot, I wouldn't even want to drink one of those shots, right?
Really?
But, yeah, the shots are not good, right? But anyway, I'm rambling on the shots, right? But in regards to the experience of Skywalker Ranch, it's for one person. Right. So even if you're splitting the cost, although you pay $5,000, and probably splitting the cost is probably not high on your thought process. Right. But assuming you are splitting the cost with other people that are enjoying the drinks with you, only one person going to Skywalker Ranch.
Yeah, it's only one of them. And again, I have to wonder what really comes with that. I feel like being a little bit more transparent might help a little bit when it comes to like, hey, buy this drink. But I think at the point where you're spending $5,000 for a drink and a ticket to Skywalker, you're not really worried about that.
Well, you do get like a backpack and a water bottle and
whoa,
decorations for your stateroom, so everybody then knows that you spent the $5,000. So that all comes with it too.
Who doesn't love flexing nuts when you're on a Disney cruise saying, I'm more rich than all of you, look at me. Yeah, I got the backpack.
That's right. And the water bottle, yeah.
And the water bottle. Can't forget the water bottle. I actually got something similar from my job when I started working there.
Me too.
Actually. Interesting. So it's a little insane. It's a little crazy to me. I don't really know exactly what they could do with Skywalker Ranch. Look, if they wanted to take me into the archives for $5,000 and we could see the pieces for $5,000, girl, like I'm gonna do that in front of the Star Cruiser 98 days a week, no problem. But I have this feeling that it's going to be a lot more like you're on a golf cart and you get to see the buildings and then they take you out for a sandwich.
Yeah, I don't think they're showing you the original script to Star Wars, right? Or taking you into a private screening of the original Empire Strikes Back that can't be seen anymore, right? I'm with you. I think it's a breeze through. Here it is. While it may not be a publicly accessible experience, right? Something tells me that some of the uber rich have had an experience at Skywalker Ranch before, right? Which they can probably just recycle into whatever this experience gets you. And again, I don't think it's lunch with George Lucas, right? I think, I don't think it is. No, I think it's a very particular set of things that they'll show you. Which again, if you're spending $5,000 on this experience and you're a huge Star Wars fan and you just know Skywalker Ranch, maybe there's a part of you that, maybe it's a large part of you at this price point, who doesn't care what the experience is.
Right. Just being there or whatever the case is.
Because you're hopping on your private jet to get there. Who the hell knows, right? I mean, because again, you still got to get there, and you're not staying overnight.
Well, we'll land in Napa and have a nice lunch, and then we'll drive down to Skywalker Ranch in the S420 and see how the rest of the day goes.
It was very explicit, like, a day's experience, so that you had no misunderstanding that you would be, staying in the George Lucas suite, right, or anything. No, you're there and you're gone. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Like, it's stick them in a golf cart, you ride around, they point you at the buildings, they give you a lunch, and then you're out. And that's essentially what I think this would be. If I'm wrong, hey, Disney, let me know. If I'm wrong, Lucasfilm, please tell me. But it just kind of goes along with this theme of the whole theme of the stream. Disney wants all your money. All your money. Not a little bit.
There's a Dwayne Custer in the comments who claims to have been a visitor to Skywalker Ranch.
I did. I saw that. Yeah. Oh, that was the wrong one. D. Wayne, where'd you go, D. Wayne?
It's after Graphite and at the Dell. Yeah.
Got to visit Skywalker Ranch in 2004 for my birthday. It was awesome. Sat in the seat that Harrison Ford did his interview with George. Saw the library, and Lucas was there in the restaurant. That's pretty badass, dude. I wouldn't be able to contain myself if I saw George. Legit. I could not contain myself. But this kind of goes along with this theme where there is an exclusivity when it comes to Star Wars fans that have money. There definitely seems to be this theme of, hey, if you got a bunch of money, you get to experience Star Wars the right way, the way we want you to experience it. And that has never been what Star Wars was about for me. And so I've been on multiple live streams. I've talked to a bunch of people who have said, who cares if they make a $5,000 offering? If you can afford it, great. If you can't, then don't worry about it. But the problem is that they're making something like a Star Wars hotel. I remember when I heard the news that was going to come around, I was like peeing my pants excited. I was freaking out. My mom she's never watched Star Wars. She was looking at it. She's like, oh my God, my son, he would lose his mind if he ever got the chance. And looking at it, and then it's like $5,000 for a weekend. And it's like, well, sorry about your dreams, little X-Wing. Never going to happen. And so I think it's this massive price point exclusivity that is pissing a lot of fans off. It's really pissing people off. And so to me, to a degree, I think it really matters because there's been this phrase that's been adopted that says Star Wars is for everyone, right? That seems to be making its way through a lot of the channels who are extremely positive until it comes to something like this. Star Wars is for everyone. Well, who can afford the Star Wars hotel? Because I can't. I've built an entire community of hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of people who love Star Wars. They can't afford it. So who's everyone? Is everyone, if they have the right idea, the right mindset, the right political message, and the right pocketbook?
Uh-oh. Did we lose you?
I'm still here. I have to close my door.
Oh, no problem. It's like, so I know sometimes you've been getting muted by the machine, right? So I do think that the Star Cruiser is it's just a very interesting use case, right, for the fandom, right? Because I do think they're catering to obviously a very, very high price point. It seems like it's something that should be designed to be a family experience, and yet that obviously multiplies the expense almost exponentially, right? To be able to bring the family there.
It's almost coincidental.
Right. And it's not what I would consider to be a standalone experience, right? It also seems to be designed for folks who are going to be at Disney for longer than just that thing. Right. So it's like, of a 7-night stay, 2 nights is going to be at the Star Cruiser, and the rest of it's going to be spent, enjoying the rest of the parks and doing other things and so on and so forth. Right. So in many ways, it doesn't even seem to be a standalone experience. And, for me personally, after looking at that and now looking at what they're offering on the Disney Wish and the as the Hyperspace Lounge, where this drink is a possibility, I would recommend paying the $150 ticket price for a day's entry into Hollywood Studios, bopping over to Galaxy's Edge and going to Oga's, right? Eating at Docking Bay 7 and having a Ronto roaster, and then going into Oga's and watching DJ Rex do his thing and the bartenders do fun things behind the bar. I don't want to give it all away, right? Do fun things behind the bar and try their Star Wars themed drinks and just have a great time. Because it seems to me, for the experience, right, for the Star Wars experience within a Disney park, you're going to have the best time in Oga's, and then looking around in Doc Ondar's on the walls as a fan, right? Even if you buy nothing from Doc Ondar's, just looking around at some of the artifacts and different things that he's collected, through his time, and trying to identify ones that are interesting to you or that might have relevance, to series coming on. Then going on Star Tours and then going on your merry way, right?
Yeah.
To me, that seems to be a better investment for a fan to have a great Star Wars experience at Disney.
So what I've heard, though, is that it's ridiculously hard to be able to get into the Millennium Falcon flight, the Rise of the Resistance, and even to get into the Cantina. It's actually super hard to get into it. Is that something that's changed, or is that still very much a thing, or what?
Well, they've moved everything to a stand. So Oga's takes reservations or lets you do standby. So the trick to getting into Oga's is go at the end of the day, right? Make it the last thing that you do, right? And because the eating and drinking establishments stay open about an hour later than the actual park does. So while everyone's trying to leave, go to Oga's, right? They'll serve you. They're open, right? They'll serve you until that time is finished, and then they'll, in a very fun way, they'll tell you to get the hell out, right? So the trick with Oga's is if you can't get a reservation and you present yourself during the day and they're not taking walk-up availability, just go back by at the end of the day, right? The problem with Smuggler's Run and also now Rise of Resistance is it's only standby, or you can try and buy the Lightning Lane to get you a return time that puts you in. Now, Smuggler's Run, you can go on single rider, and as long as you don't care about necessarily riding with the rest of your party, single rider will get you in 20, 30 minutes, usually when the standby wait is in the hours.
Yeah, but then you got to be in the cockpit of the Falcon with a bunch of people you don't know, and possibly somebody who has no idea how to fly a starship, right?
Not only possible, but likely, right? That is the blessing and the curse with single rider, right? And you also miss the Hondo animatronic. You miss a lot of the fun when you do that. Yeah. So for Smuggler's Run, you're going to wait, right? And you'll see what it's going to be. It's usually an hour and a half ish, right? Rise of Resistance, you either have to, if they're not sold out, you either have to buy a Lightning Lane for as much as I think $20 a person for a dedicated time to come back, or you need to wait in a multi-hour line, which can be 3 hours long. So
you paid for a ticket to Disneyland, and then to ride the ride that you want to ride, you have to pay to ride the ride that you want to ride.
This is the problem with their replacement for their previously free Fast Pass and Fast Pass Plus concept.
That's the only thing I know is Fast Pass. That's the only thing I've ever known.
The pandemic killed Fast Pass, right? So what they've replaced it with is a Genie Plus, which has a $15 price tag and includes X number of rides and your ability to get return times. That's like the old Fast Pass.
It's like going to a carnival, though. Like, you pay to get into the carnival, and then you have to pay to ride the rides.
So I'll get back to that, but you're right. And each park then has Lightning Lanes, which don't require you to pay the $15 for Genie Plus, but does require you to pay a particular fluctuating price, depending on how busy the park is, just to gain Fast Pass type entry into those rides. Now, this does go back to this is funny, right? Because I'm old enough to
Disney wants all your money. Yeah.
I'm old enough to remember the way it used to work, right? The way it used to work was you paid a very small amount of money to actually enter any of these parks.
Yeah.
And then you bought tickets. So when you hear people today say Rise of Resistance is an e-ticket attraction, it's because when these parks started, they sold tickets A, B, C, D, and E. And those tickets cost a certain amount of money. They sold a certain amount of tickets per day. And that's how you rode the rides. It was very carnival-like, right? And it would depend on how much, whether you bought just A's or B's, you could, you know what I mean?
Until they took the ticket price up to $175 a day.
Well, that's when, so gradually they phased out the whole notional concept of, even though the rides are still classified as A, B, C, D, or E ticket, and mainly based upon the length of the ride and how much you wait and what the experience is like. And that's why I say Guardians of the Galaxy is an E ticket attraction and so on. And Remy's Ratatouille Adventure might be a D ticket. But anyway, then they said, you know what, this is not working. We have too many rides now, right? These tickets are all over the place and people are losing tickets. And it just became unwieldy.
Yeah.
And that's when they started doing
charge an average
day tickets, and then multi-day ticket was new, and then the park hopping, and all of this stuff grew primarily during the Eisner time frame, right? Eisner changed a lot of how this worked in the parks as they were thinking about expanding into Epcot and doing other things. A lot of the things that we got used to, like FastPass and the rest of it, are all Eisner creations, which persisted and were just built upon.
Why get rid of the FastPass unless you're looking to make more money? Is there really? You say COVID killed FastPass, but how does COVID kill FastPass other than somebody walking up and touching a pass, which doesn't come into contact with anything else at any point?
So the story goes, of course, Chapek wanted to. So when Chapek started rising through the ranks, right, there was a time when he was in charge of the parks.
This is why you paid Chapstick.
So many reasons, right? But when he went from merchandising, his background and rise to fame was merchandising, right? And then he became head of the parks and different things happened, right? He always had it in for free Fast Pass, right? And so some of the parks, especially overseas, they started charging for Fast Pass, right? And there was a rumor pre-pandemic that all the parks would begin charging for Fast Pass. And before he could start capitalizing on that, the pandemic happened and the parks closed. And when the parks reopened and they implemented the Park Pass system and some of the other things to control capacity, there wasn't the need for a Fast Pass of any kind.
Right.
And so the speculation at that point was, well, now he's going to get what he wants, right? When and if this thing does come back in some way, it'll come back as a paid product, as a pay-for product. And ultimately, when they started raising capacity and people began coming back to the parks, that's when they said, all right, we're going to do this Genie Plus, these lightning lanes and different things, and Fast Pass. Now Fast Pass is being eliminated everywhere in favor of something that's going to be like Genie and Genie Plus.
So I feel like I was blessed because I was just at Disneyland Paris last year, and it was very much old school Disney. Same thing. There was still a Fast Pass. It felt like old Disney. Everything was very kind of laissez-faire, as the French would say, you know. It was kind of relaxed. And apparently that is just not exactly what's going on at the park these days. It's very regimented, very tight. And look, if you want to be part of the cool crowd, give me that. Give me that shit. Give me that money.
not only do you have to pay for some of these privileges, right, to ride these rides and do other things that may have previously been free or just required a little bit of in-park planning by Fast Pass. At least the Orlando-based parks have become so complicated and so stressful now to visit because of the Park Pass reservation system, because of how that works, because of an inability to park hop the way you want, because sometimes there are virtual queues, sometimes they're not. Right now, the Genie Plus and the Lightning Lane and all of this stuff that's required is all also done via your personal device, right? So you're constantly on your phone, you're constantly in the app crashes.
That's Disney magic, baby.
You're constantly in there doing everything. You have to keep your phone charged, right? It is very, very stressful if your goal is to go to a Disney or any of the Disney Orlando parks right now and ride rides and eat at a sit-down restaurant or two. It's quite difficult, and it requires an awful lot of pre-planning, and people get there who haven't visited these parks in years, who are used to what you experienced in DLP, right?
That's the Disney I know. So Mrs. X-Wing and I are going to Disney World for the portion of our honeymoon, and now I'm getting a little worried. And I'm like, I might have to pay Rissman to be our frickin' Detour Plus guide or whatever, because apparently it's a whole different deal.
Well, I hope you've already got your tickets, made your park reservations, and got some dining reservations now, because all of that needs to happen 90 days before you visit. Right? Because there are people.
Shit, we're like 66 days out. I thought I was going to be good.
There are people who actually wait for that to be in that window, and they're immediately booking, right? And trying to do things because they know if you wait until closer, God forbid, when you're there on site, sometimes you're just fucked, right? And I've experienced families there trying to do basic things with kids. Some of them are even staying on Disney property. They're fucked. Right? It's a very, and we do have.
So you're telling me they can't get Star Wars right and they can't get their fucking parks right?
Bob Chapek has been and continues to ruin the Disney experience. This is part of the reason why I hate the man with such a passion. I don't hate him as a person. I'd like to believe he's a nice person. I don't know the guy, right? But I hate
you guys have similar haircuts.
True. I hate what he's been doing for the brand, right? And part of what you're talking, I know I'm off on a rant now on Disney parks, right? But in regards to what you're talking about on the Disney experience and how it's being merchandised, that's Chapek. That is 100% Bob Chapek.
So that's why you hate Chapek. It doesn't have anything to do with Star Wars. Your hate for Chapek comes solely from the parks.
It's because
maybe not solely, but
primarily because on your point, I've been going to the Disney parks since I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
Right. I've experienced the Disney parks when they were in their heyday, right? When every experience you would want that makes that the most magical. They've even changed the tagline. Yeah. They can't even call themselves the most magical place on earth anymore, right? Because it's just not fucking true.
Right.
So you think about the experience we had in the 80s compared to the experience we have now, there is absolutely no comparison.
I feel like I got pretty close. I mean, you would call it the most late of the 90s, but I mean, running right up to 2000 was the last time I was at Disney World. And I was a kid, but holy shit, it was magical. My God, I loved it. You walk in the park, ladies and gentlemen, coming over the loudspeaker, and there's fanfare everywhere, and you walk and you're like, this is the coolest place that exists on planet Earth. It's the happiest place on Earth. Well, it was the happiest place on Earth.
And now they've opened their version of Avengers Campus at DLP, and they cheaped out on that. They put screens in Pim's tasting kitchen. They didn't even put as much care into Avengers fucking Campus at DLP as they did at Disneyland. Already they cheaped out on it. Right? Now they did a couple other cool things there that's specific to the rides in that Avengers Campus that don't exist in Disneyland, but even there they just didn't do it because money. That's what we say about Chapek, because fucking money.
You know what the title of the stream is, right? Disney wants all your money.
And Jay's exactly right? They didn't put Darth Vader is not roaming Galaxy's Edge. They put him in the fucking launch bay. He has a very nice little Star Destroyer.
Yeah, but they're hiding him inside the building. He's not walking around. Although to be fair, I wouldn't want to be walking around in Florida in a Darth Vader suit anyway. You know what I mean?
But they also took his stage away from outside Star Tours. Right? Yep. There was an experience outside Star Tours where they were doing.
I remember that vividly.
With Padawans and some of the rest of it.
Yep.
Right. So, but again, the reason, and again, it's a PhotoPass experience, right? They want to sell you the picture, right? So you go and see Darth Vader, you can take a selfie and do some other things, but they want to sell you their PhotoPass product, right?
All right, we got to say thanks to Drunk real quick.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your generous contribution to
X-Wing.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it, buddy.
That's my favorite one.
There was a comment here I wanted to grab. This is the one that really upset me, and I know that it's probably not important to a lot of people, but there's kind of a long story that goes along with this with Mrs. X-Wing. So Mrs. X-Wing was always promised a trip to Disney World as a young girl. And I was lucky enough when I was a kid, I got to go. And so I experienced that magical moment when you walk in the gates and they say, ladies and gentlemen, and you're like, she's never going to get to experience that. Ever. She's never going to be able to experience that moment. Like, it breaks my heart, dude. It breaks my heart so hard. It's so frustrating, man. It's so frustrating. I don't even know what to say.
She wouldn't even get to see the railroad in the Magic Kingdom because they can't finish fucking Tron, which has been unfinished now for 5 years. And because of that, the train tracks are broken. So the train hasn't run this whole time, right? I could ramble on and on and on and on, right, about key parts of what used to constitute the Disney magical experience that haven't existed in Orlando now for years.
Yeah.
For fucking years.
And I'm almost wondering if that's the next step, dude. Welcome, they, them, zers, zers, these, them, zers, zers, them, zers, zers, them, X, Y's, and B's to the most magical place on earth. I'm like, bruh, there has to be some happy medium where we can both be okay. You know what I mean? Like, don't take it away from me. I'm willing to give, but don't take.
I hear you, right? I mean, they're I think actually they don't, unless you're there at rope drop, right? I don't think they welcome you, and they've changed the kiss goodnight at closing to remove the gender specific part of the greeting that happened post pandemic when they brought that back. It's just unfortunate, right? I mean, again, I want to be deferential and respectful, right? But there are just
as much as you can be.
There are just some things that are part of the mythos, right? They're just part of what used to constitute their experience, right? The things that Walt Disney himself put in place when these parks opened now have been modernized in ways that continue to depart us, right, from a lot of the core values that he put into these parks in the first place.
You know what? The bottom line is, dude, we're old, white, cis males, and there's just no room in the world left for guys like us. It's the bottom line. On that note, let's hit some super chats.
Do it.
Nick Holness for another $4.49. Do you guys think celebration tickets are too expensive for entry? Hashtag take my money, Disney. I think they probably do it. They are too expensive, but I think where they really get you is when you're in there. That's where they get you.
Yep.
That's what Disney does. It's a lot like the park as well, like you were talking about. You know, the price is absorbent to get in there, but then once you're in there, that's how they get you. They're like, well, you got to eat. You can't bring food in. You got to drink. Can't bring drink in. How much is this chicken? $34. $34 for this plate of chicken. Enjoy. Thoughts?
And you're also paying a premium because a lot of people have been conditioned when visiting Disney specifically. I know this was a celebration question, right? But when visiting Disney specifically, they've been very conditioned to stay on property, right? To stay on Disney property, to take advantage of, conveniences that allow them to get to and from the parks and do other things like, ship packages back to their rooms and just other little perks, right? That were very appealing, right? Well, now staying on property has become so premium priced, even in their value resorts, and
right.
Transportation now is so overloaded with folks trying to transit back and forth and do different things that it's almost, and you don't get guaranteed entry to the parks. You still have to make reservations just like everyone else, right? They've taken some of that stuff out. That's why I never stay in it. And they don't know how to run a hotel. So the hotel experience at Disney isn't a great experience, even in their premium product. That's why I never stay on property, right? They've de-incentivized.
You're really exciting me for my honeymoon. Thank you, man.
Well, hopefully you're staying somewhere nice, right? So
it's in the park.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm just saying, right? It takes some doing, right? In regards to Celebration specifically, right? I view Celebration as a pseudo premium product, right? You're traveling to a venue that's usually not around the corner, right?
Right.
It's around the corner for him, right? If it's ever in Orlando again,
Not for us.
Pseudo around the corner for me, but I'm going to travel internationally to go there. So for me, given what I'm putting into getting there, the cost of the ticket itself was the least of my concerns.
Right.
In regards to the overall value proposition, right? But yeah, going to Celebration is a premium product, and they need to control the number of tickets being sold because of capacity limitations as well.
And that's fair. I'm okay with that. Capacity limitations, I understand. My question would be, do you think they applied that to the Star Wars hotel where they thought people were going to pay? There were going to be so many people that wanted to go to the Halcyon that they picked 5K as like a good starting spot?
I think they had some actuarians look at, because there's only like 150, there's less than 200 rooms, right?
Right.
So, and there's X number of rooms at a certain capacity or suite versus non-suite, because not all the rooms are the same either. So I think they took an actuarian type or somebody, or ran it through an algorithm, or did something that said, how do we feel like we maximize whatever return on this investment we're looking for?
And they thought $5,000 was the number.
And what came back was the range of numbers that we get given those times a year. And it's gotten distilled down to $5,000, right? Sometimes it's $6,000, $7,000, sometimes it's 3,500, right? But it's gotten distilled down. The soundbite is to 5,000. But no, I think they took what they felt like was break even, and then they probably added some percentage to try and meter it for capacity and for exclusivity. And then they said, let's see if the market would bear this.
I don't think it's bearing it.
I've looked at the calendar, but not recently. And what you find in the calendar is, in the future, it's always seems a bit booked, but within the 90-day cancellation window, you find pockets of availability, but you can never tell. Does that mean there's just one room available? Does it mean there's 75 rooms available? Does it, we don't know exactly what's behind availability. What we do know is it's not sold out every month. That's for sure.
That's what they were hoping for. Oh, I didn't mean to undo that. I'm sorry. Paul Blunt. Rissman, are you getting a fast pass to the honeymoon suite?
I am not. It sounds like you. It sounds like you are.
Yes, sir. September 3rd. The old boys finally getting the old ball and chain. It's been long enough. All right, good sir. I only have one topic left tonight, unless there's something you want to talk about. I made a video on it earlier this week. We're talking about Reva's HasLab Black Series Saber. Have you looked at it? Have you paid any attention to it? Do you know how this wound up? Okay.
Yeah. I looked at it. I have to tell you, I looked at it initially because I was very curious to see if it would have my favorite feature, spinny. That's my favorite.
Spinny.
Not only no spinny, but I think you also had to physically change out the half moon through full. You had to, the centerpiece, right, had to be
correct.
Had to be hardware changed out. I'm not a huge Hasbro collector, nor do I actually own a lightsaber.
You don't own a single lightsaber?
I own a Lego Yoda's hilt, but
Shame on you.
I don't actually own a lightsaber, right? But I have to tell you what got my attention, right, was the $500 price, because it seemed like it was premium pricing for something even I, as not a connoisseur of this kind of collectible, identify, because I always put it in terms of Legos, right? I always put it in terms of, for $500, what could I get that would be special in something I'm familiar with? It would be a hell of a lot more special than this thing, right? I can tell you that.
Yeah. So I mean, I made a video on it. You can go and see it. But essentially, these sabers have been and always will be really subpar sabers. They're just not good. They never have been. And I hope someday they will be, but by the time they actually get to be good sabers, they're going to be so expensive. Not a human on earth is going to be willing to spend the price that they would on a good Force FX lightsaber. So the first thing I'll tell you right off the bat, you can see it from the promo pictures, and I can't believe the guy who was photoshopping these didn't do it. You can see the individual LED lights.
I see it. Yeah.
On this blade. You can see every single one. And the electronics in this saber are so bad that when you light it up, you can see it go chunk, 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 chunk. Like, it's like a bad 1978, like, it's 1978, I'm sorry, 1998, like a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater loading screen. It jumps as it lights up. So A, that doesn't make sense. B, it's not a true Profi or Asteria or any of those soundboards where you'll get legitimate smooth swing with the saber. Smooth swing is the functionality where when you move it, depending on how you move it, it changes noises. You're never going to get that from a Disney saber. Here, hold on. Where did I put that thing? I'm going to go get mine.
Wow, it didn't even come close, did it? 1,400. Gracious. I was just looking at the number. I didn't realize that not only did it not fund, it didn't even get close. It didn't even get close to funding.
It barely made 25% is what it looks like to me from the bar. I didn't run the numbers on it. Yeah, okay, a little over. But a traditional smooth swing saber will see how it makes smooth swing sounds, and then when you really whack it, it really goes. You will never get that from a Force FX lightsaber. And I've tried to tell people so many times, don't buy these things. They're terrible. They're awful. And the collectors came out and decided, we don't want anything to do with this.
So here's the question I have is more fundamental, right? Understanding that the Disney parks has a very lucrative lightsaber hilt selling business ongoing, right? If they wanted to take the easiest path to producing an Inquisitor's saber of any kind, right? Because when it comes right down to it, even though I don't know that we've had a lot to look at, they all look the same to me, right? Whether it's the Grand Inquisitors, whether it's the Fifth Brothers, whether it's Reva's saber, and I'm sure somewhere in the hilt or somewhere there is some intricacy that's different. But for right now, let's just call it any Inquisitor.
It's a dark side saber. It's black and silver.
Call it any Inquisitor saber, right? Why don't you just make one for $275, stick it in the lightsaber shop at Galaxy's Edge, and call it a day? I bet you they would sell, right? I bet you they would sell just fine, right? I don't understand this. This is a very, to me, this is a very non-Chapek thing because he's not involved in this, right? Hasbro's not his company.
I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why this one is different. Because on this one, they tried to incorporate a lot of the things that Profi, Asteria, Golden Hearts, any of the they've done it for a long, long time. They've added in features like tip drag, ooh, and smooth swing. Oh, and so they wanted to make this quote unquote premium product. But like I said in my video, this is something that's been out on the market for years and years and years and years. And just like China, keep doing what you're doing, they can make it so much more affordable with a better or same looking hilt for half the price.
And see, like Devil Actual is saying in the chat, right? When I look at it, I'm like, just give me the hilt. Right, I would personally rather put the hilt in a display case. I think the Inquisitor saber, and Ronnie, of course, is correcting me that it makes sense, right? That they're all a little different. Okay, fine. Then the first one I would want to buy would be the Grand Inquisitor saber, but it has nothing to do with Kenobi. It's because of Rebels, right? That'd be my first purchase would be the Grand Inquisitor saber of peace and love, whatever. I would love the hilt. I would probably, if I was going to get my first one, given my proclivity for Rebels and some of the rest of it, I'd spend $300 on the Grand Inquisitor's lightsaber hilt. I don't care if it smooth swings makes a noise, lights or unlights. Because I would never put a blade in the thing.
And so that's the thing that Disney did do right. That's the one thing that they did do right, is that they have replica hilts, so built to the same specs for the most part, built to the same specs as what you would find as essentially a prop saber. So for me, the only reason I would buy one of these legacy sabers is for the hilt.
Yeah.
Because the electronics are trash, but a lot of the hilts look good. But as stated in my video, there are a lot of hilts that Force FX and Legacy Sabers put out that are absolutely horrible. They're horrible. But did you see the Sidious Saber?
I did. It was very funny.
Like this big around, dude. It's fucking huge.
I still don't think Ronnie got the joke from the video, but that's okay, right?
Oh, Ronnie, poor Ronnie.
I think the question I have for you is, do you feel like the reason why it didn't get funded is because people recognized that the guts of it and that the effects of it are subpar, or do you just think there wasn't the demand for it at this price point?
Nobody wanted the saber. Who wants the saber? Be honest with yourself. Even somebody who was massively in love with the Kenobi show, and I will tell you this much, I don't do this often, and I don't say this often, so just, take this with a grain of salt or whatever the case may be. I'll tell you right now that people who really are like deep in Star Wars, thick into Star Wars, and love this shit and know this shit, they're not spending money on Kenobi collectibles, and they're certainly not spending money on Reva stuff. I can promise you that. You put a $500 collectible in front of me from a character that nobody gives a shit about and expect it to get backed by 5,000 people? Who is running this shit? Well, who's running this?
I didn't even buy this will be the first Lego set that's come out that I've passed on, right? Because they put out the stupid non-dual quarry nonsense for $50, right? So I'm with you, right? There appears to be a Kenobi merchandise to the extent that there is any, right? There seems to be a Kenobi, although the Lego Sky ship is awesome, which I did put on pre-order. But anyway, there seems to be a Kenobi merchandise fail, right? And that's why I say if they would have just split the difference and put the Grand Inquisitor saber here instead, I think they could have attracted some more interest from folks.
I would have looked at it.
Who have a background with the character from something other than Kenobi. I would guess it would be more than 1,413 people. Maybe I would have said yes. Maybe it would have made 1,414. I don't fucking know.
If they'd have dropped that price point to like 300 and made it the Grand Inquisitors, they probably could have backed this project.
I agree.
They might have been able to back this project.
I would have paid $300 for the Grand Inquisitor's saber as my first one, and I would have backed it.
And a lot of people are saying, well, at this point, what's kind of funny is it's a victim of circumstance now, because the HasLab Rancor failed. And people are just saying that Star Wars collectors aren't happy. They don't want anything. And it's bullshit. If you haven't followed the stuff, the reason why the Rancor failed was not because of the product itself. That Rancor was actually pretty dope. But you kind of hype your friends up, you hype everybody up, and you back it more and more because you want to see what the next tiers of what you're going to get with the Rancor are going to be. As they released what you were going to get with the Rancor, the backing dropped off. It dropped off to the point where I think they were real close to getting it, and then it dropped down to almost here. It was like 1,400 backers by the end of it. Again, I made a video on it.
But so, I think it's a very valid point, right? I mean, for me.
Well, and what did this come with for another backer tier? What are you going to give me? Reva's Pauldron? Like, I don't care. I don't know this character.
Were they even giving any other than the ability to change out the hilt and some other things?
I know of nothing else that was going to come with this other than the saber.
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to think to myself, for me personally, right, what did I see in the Kenobi series that I could see Hasbro potentially doing as something special that I would have put money into, right? And what I come up with is the Grand Inquisitor saber.
Right.
I like the Scythe ship, but again, Lego's got a kick-ass model, which I've already bought. The only other thing I can come up with is the Executor. I'm not the Executor, the
I was going to say the Executor would be like
not
$1,000.
The I'm blanking. The ship Vader.
The Scythe?
The Star Destroyer that Vader used pre-Executor. He was on it. The Devastator.
Oh yeah, Devastator. I almost called it the Punisher.
The Devastator, right? But the reason why I
hold this down for 2 seconds, okay?
Yeah. The reason why I personally gravitate to those things is because they're things that we know from other places, right? So they seem to have more marketability and more appeal, and I think they were going for, let's do something that was kind of special for the Kenobi series, and this is what they picked. I don't think it means Star Wars fans don't want premium collectibles. I just think it means they don't want these premium collectibles. The Rancor didn't interest me either, right? But I know there are probably some hardcore Return of the Jedi fans who were interested enough, but again, it didn't come with other things that people wanted, right? So I don't know. Stuff I've bought from Hasbro has been other things, right? Whether it's Transformers or whether it's G.I. Joe. Listen, they just put up a beautiful HISS tank. That thing funded in quite quickly, from what I understand, right? So it's not that people won't pay the money for these premium collectibles, but if you don't want it, you don't want it. And by the way, Nick Holness, I still think you are crazy for putting that worthless $50 fake dual set on pre-order. Tap boy Steve, no. Not gonna say that. I do. I throw them all away, Ronnie.
Oh my God, I literally could not hold that anymore.
No problem.
I'm sorry. Had to turn the ears off of Gundark there.
I don't know if you heard my rambling, right? But I just finished the ramble with I don't think it's the case that people are unwilling to pay for a premium Star Wars collectible, right? But I think the appeal needs to be less narrow, right? It needs to be less of a narrow appeal, and it needs to come with other things that people find some exclusivity in, because that's the way it works for other stuff. Nick Holness is razzing me about this Rebel set that I bought. But it came with an Agent Callus minifig, right? There were very few sets that you could get the Agent Callus minifig in, right? So
right.
We pulled the trigger on the ATDP, and he's probably now my favorite minifig, right? That same notion, I think, applies to the reason why the Rancor didn't make it, right? Just because there was an expectation of other things that it should have come with that it didn't. And now this Riva saber or whatever, people didn't want it. What can I say?
People didn't want it. There's no way around it.
1,413 people may have wanted it, right? How many of them were going to resell it versus keep it? I have no idea.
Well, for me, it was like, I look at what happened with the HasLab Rancor and why it failed, and then I look at what happened with the Reva Saber and why it failed, and they are two completely different problems. But the people who have, two brain cells to slap together will say it's the same issue, that Star Wars fans are toxic and they don't want anything. Like, why don't you take a minute to actually think about what's going on here? This mirrors something else that happened kind of in the pop culture universe recently with Ripa and Ripa's comic. I don't know if you saw what happened there.
It went over $1 million and was still climbing.
I made $1 million in a day.
Mm-hmm.
Because the dude turned around and made something that people wanted. And I am more than happy to pay Disney my share of $1 million in a day if it's something that we want. That's the bottom line. So I'm less like, oh, fuck Disney. I'm never gonna buy anything Disney. Like, part of me feels that way. But if they make something good, if they make something that makes me happy as a Star Wars fan, I'm gonna give you my money.
Well, and I would also offer, right, the people who are paying $500 for any collectible, right? They're serious collectors, right? It's not most of us anyway, right? It's not just throwaway money, right? You're making decisions, right? When you're spending that much money on a collectible, you're making decisions about what else you're not doing that month.
Monday,
right?
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are hungry days if I'm buying that collectible.
Right. So, I mean, to me, that adds because of that additional barrier to entry, right? It has to really be something special, right? Or something with a very broad appeal across multiple parts of the franchise, I would think logically, right? That would cause people to want to back such a thing, right? I'll be very curious to see if we do see in the not too distant future, there's a lot of C's, we do see in the not too distant future some Inquisitor hilt make an appearance in the Disney parks.
Oh, 100%. It'll be Revisaber. They're like, well, we already spent the money on previs. We already printed all this shit. We thought it was going to be a knockout. Let's sell it at the park.
The reason why some of these sabers do come, like Plo Koon's saber just made an appearance, Kyle Katarn, some of these do get in.
Kyle Katarn's did?
Yeah, not too long ago.
I'm buying that.
Not Kyle Katarn's. I take that back.
Cal Kestis.
Kyle Kestis. some of these come due to votes, right? They put out votes periodically across a few different options, and
they need to be doing that every fucking time. Every time, because I guarantee you they would not have spent the money in R&D to make a Revisaber if they'd have put it to a vote.
You see, and it works, right? It's not phantom demand, right? They make a choice, then they manufacture them, they put them out, and guess what? They sell out
fast.
Right? Yeah, right. And that's why I'm like, for me, I think if you just do a little bit more voice of the customer in more traditional ways, and my goodness, it's so much easier now to do that than it used
Listen to the people who are buying your product, and like you said, this is the easiest time to get feedback from your customer. But there seems to be this disconnect where they're like, well, we're not going to listen to them, we're going to do what we want to do, and the people who really care are going to come through. How'd that go?
1,413 people did. Right? I mean,
tell me you have no grip on your fan base without telling me you have no grip on your fan base. I mean, beyond that, do you remember No Oolah, No Moolah when I was coming around?
Yep.
Like, we were begging for stuff from the OT, and they were like, nah, fam, we'll give you some bones and a paper cut back, like a paper backing to the... What the fuck are you doing?
I know.
I simply don't understand. It escapes me, and maybe it's because I'm not a toy designer. Maybe it's because I don't work at Lucasfilm. Maybe it's because I don't have the heartbeat on the fan base like I feel like I do at times. I've been told, do you remember when we did the live stream with That Junkman?
Mm-hmm.
Great guy. But the day after we got done with it, he was like, I did a live stream with X-Wing, and that dude thinks that people don't like Kenobi. And I'm like, a lot of people don't.
Well, and I was the other guy. He was like, and the other guy thought he liked it, then he didn't act like he liked it, then he acted like he might have liked it. Like, that was me.
I was like, exactly. Man, a lot of us don't, and I feel like sometimes, I guess this will be sort of the end of the conversation, but it seems to me like the two sides of the fan base are so self-absorbed with their own opinion that neither can see that both of them are right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, if I got a negative opinion about it, somebody who's positive about it is going to tell me I'm in a bubble. And then if I'm negative about it and they don't like it and blah, 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 and it goes on and on and on, nobody else is willing to see anybody else's side of the conversation. And it's just further division. The only, what is most frustrating to me, the hardest part is if you could just tell that person, be smarter and have some empathy, it would fix everything. It'd fix everything.
And then again, not to beat the poor Rancor any more dead than he already is, right? Or she, I suppose. But why not have just waited an eensy little bit longer? Then maybe stick a Boba Fett with the Rancor too, right? Now you got multi-appeal Rancor.
There you go.
Right?
There you go.
You got a little bit going on with the lot, and then maybe all of a sudden Rancor. Right? Because I don't think we've seen the last of Boba on the Rancor, by the way.
Yeah.
right? So I mean, there's just little things like that I also don't get. Sometimes you just wonder, maybe Hasbro just doesn't, doesn't know how to make money on Star Wars. I mean, Kenner knew how to do it, right? That's what I came up with, right? I came up with the fact that the figures sold out before they were even produced, right? And I was sending in box tops. I was sending in box tops to get Boba Fett, and then again to get the Emperor, and then we're getting the vehicles and all that. And I mean, for so long, the barrier to entry was the same for everyone from a Star Wars collecting perspective. It was all about supply and demand and getting to Child World and Toys R Us and these places, early enough, and hope people were distracted with Cabbage Patch Kids, right? Well, you're trying to buy the new Star Wars stuff.
Well, and there was a time when a figure came out, you were getting it. It didn't matter who it was. If it was Wicket, you were buying it. Didn't matter. You had to have it. And that was me when it came to the Phantom Menace line. I didn't care who it was. I was buying it. Jar Jar Binks? You bet your ass I'm getting one. That's a contact line. Like, I love that thing. And so for me, the disconnect really comes from this is a growing pain, I think, for Lucasfilm. I think it's a growing pain for Hasbro, even though they've apparently been going through growing pain since 2012, trying to figure out what Star Wars fans actually want. Every time I watch one of those Hasbro Fan First Wednesdays or Hasbro Star Wars First Fridays, and they release some of these figures, I'm like, dude,
I know.
Please listen to the fucking people. Listen to the people, for the love of God. Like, literally at this point right now, I would say that their Black Series line is better than their vintage collection, which is horrible to say, because Star Wars has and always will be a 3.75 fucking brand. It's always going to be a 3.75 brand. Always going to be. And I'm a traditionalist. I love my 3.75. I love my vintage collection. And they're fucking up, dude. They're fucking up. I don't know what else to say. Sorry for everyone who's not a collector. There's a 6-inch line and a 3.75, and they're just,
even as a toy lover, right? And as a seasoned fan of the franchise, right? It's just so weird, because a lot of these franchises, and Star Wars especially, was built by the toys. We all played with our Star Wars Kenner toys, right? As I was growing up, right? Everybody on the block had one or the other or whatever, and we were doing everything together. And it was the same G.I. Joe and Transformers. At that time, He-Man and all the rest of it. At that time, the merchandise and the toys led the franchises in a way, right? And we've come 180. I wouldn't say 360, right? Because we're in a completely different place now, right? With the weird premium products and just a strange way to market and make things available, and no toys on shelves anymore, and it's got to be online.
There's no toys on shelves anymore.
There's not even any toy stores anymore. So if you don't find it in a Walmart or a Target, I don't even know where you would buy a toy these days.
I'm on a one-way track towards having a baby X-Wing. Okay, in my near future. The fact that he will not be able to walk into a store, and for me, it was red all over the floor. Everything was like a red lightsaber in the Phantom Menace, and it was a whole aisle of whatever Star Wars toy you could ever think of, just coated the walls, and your brain goes into fucking meltdown because you're like, what the hell? Oh my God, I want all of it. He's never going to get to experience that. And so maybe that's why I've been building my room this way. But, I want him to be able to experience that, that mania, that collecting love that is essentially a dead art. There are a few of us who are still carrying on, the legacy, I guess. But really, it's kind of gone.
I'm with you, right? Because again, I remember Toys R Us, and up north it was Child World, and
not yet.
We had KB Toys, and there was competition, right? There wasn't just one toy store, right? You were going all multiple malls and strip shopping centers, and we made all the places, trying to get this, that, and the other, and who has it, and word of mouth, and shit. If you find one, buy it. but the shelves, I mean, it was just because again, unless you were getting a catalog, the only way you could find out about these things was
pulling that bitch off the peg,
going out to a store and saying, "Holy shit, it's here! I
Yeah.
didn't know it was here. You know, it came early or whatever."
I've been trying to get this Darth Maul for like 2 weeks. Let's go.
Right. And now it's like, you know, as some folks in the chat have the same experience, right? I mean, you know, these days are long gone, and I think the growing pains really are around the fact that toys have never really made a smooth transition from being something that's very tactile, right? That's being very in a storefront, and that part of the experience, I don't think it's made a very smooth transition to online sales.
Right.
And that's unfortunate.
Well, what they would do, you know, to make that transition would essentially be putting an ad on the Kenobi show on Disney Plus, and a kid clicks on it and they're like, "Oh, I can buy a toy from this show." And if we saw that on the front of the Kenobi show, oh my God, could you imagine what oldies like us would do? Fucking rage cage.
And, you know, I have to say, you know, for my collecting habits, right? I mean, there are some things that Lego still does that are very old school, right? They send out catalogs. Right. They have storefronts. Lego is pervasive in multiple kinds of stores, right? Not a complete selection, but it's much easier, sadly and strangely. I can go out and about across town if I wanted to today and encounter more Lego on the shelves than I could any Star Wars collectible or any minifig collectible, generally speaking, because we still have that part of their model as a very important part of the model, inclusive of standalone stores, right? And it works.
Yeah. I wanted to bring this up too. Like, you can still do that, X-Wing. So the problem with me as a collector is, like, I still crave that experience, like running into a store and trying to find, you know, that one piece that you wanted so bad. And the only time I've gotten that in the last 7 years was when Antok Merrick's X-Wing came out. You remember that?
I do.
I was freaking out in the Discord. I was like a little kid. I was literally in my work van and I'm like, "Boss, I'm fucking off." And just the morning it released, and I ran to the aisle and there was like 70 Antok Merrick X-Wings, and I got it in my hands, and that was the last time that I felt that feeling. And before that, it had been 15 years since I'd felt that feeling. Yeah. And it was so awesome. But the bottom line is, they, you know, Hasbro keeps doing these, you know, Target exclusives, Walmart exclusives, whatever the case may be. And then the second you show up to the store, it's all gone, and you can't go anywhere else because it's an exclusives. And then you go on the internet to try to find it. And of course, any fucking jerk who's too fat to get up and go to fucking Walmart already bought 60 of them, and then they go on eBay and they scalp the shit out of them.
Yeah.
It's really frustrating, man.
That's why I say I think that our once the toy stores died, and I know our Canadian friends are saying and reminding, Toys R Us is still viable elsewhere, right? It's still a viable franchise in Canada and in some other places, right? So it's a very interesting thing, right? It's not that Toys R Us went out everywhere. Toys R Us went out in the US, right? As did the primary brick and mortar chain toy stores, right? And as soon as that happened, people, you know, these large companies who still wanted a toy store presence were forced to partner with the only pre-existing large franchise retailers, which is your Target and your Walmart, because Kmart's gone these days, right?
Yeah.
Would be another viable option, but now it's pretty much just Target and Walmart. Some Macy's have brought back little play Toys R Us, you know, venues, and again, Kohl's will bring some things in, but again, it's primarily Legos and a few other things. But if it isn't Target or Walmart, which is not their bread and butter, and I've heard from many people and some online communities, right, that the toy buying experience is very, very frustrating in those large, you know, budgety retailers, because again, it's just not their their business, and the street dating and the stalking and just the way that it all happens is very disagreeable. It's a shame.
So now I've got, we're down to 36, between 36 and 40 people here. So I know I have my collectors in the chat, and thank you guys for being here. My question to you, and to you, Rissman, as well, but the chat, what do you guys think about them getting rid of the plastic bubble on vintage collection figures? That is a huge problem for me. And it was so funny because I was watching the chat when they were talking about this in the Hasbro, and everybody's like, stop being a bitch. Like, just buy your figure and take it out. And I'm like, I feel like they're missing the most integral part of why we bought card back figures. We bought card back figures so that we could stick them somewhere. We could see them with a plastic bubble and you could see the figure. When you take that out of the equation and now it's just a cardboard box, shit, you can take the figure out, do whatever you want with it, burn it to a crisp, and stick it back in the cardboard box, and nobody's the wiser. Mm-hmm. There was this kind of holy relic about a perfect bubble when it came to the figs, right? If you had a perfect bubble, card back was just smooth as velvet. Everything looked perfect. That's a nice collectible right there. And then you take that out of the equation, and now we just have a cardboard box with the picture on the front. Like, that could be an Amazon box. I don't give a shit.
So I think, though, this is on theme with what we've just been talking about, right? Because I think the impetus for having that see-through ability, right, in selling toys and selling anything, really, comes from a time when people would impulse buy simply by walking down an aisle, spotting something that they wouldn't have otherwise known was there, and saying, oh, shit, I want that, right? I can see that and I want that, right? When you move to a primarily, this is, I'm sure, is part of the thinking, they're going to say it's environmental reasons, peace and love to the environment, but we know
it's, with your plastic figure.
Yeah, right.
You're doing a real service.
But where they're going is, well, our primary way of selling these things now is not in-person sales, right? It's direct to consumer, but primarily online. Well, we can just put a picture of the damn thing. Then when they get it, this is their thinking. Well, when they get it, then they're going to open it up and take it out. So what does it matter, right? I still don't believe they're thinking about it from a collector's point of view. Otherwise, they should offer two varieties, right?
Which are the people who buy the figures. So fine, charge me $1 more.
That's exactly
charge me $1 more, and I'll put a fucking bubble on it.
Because they're still coming at it primarily for a certain class of figure, I believe, as people are playing with these things as toys, right? I would like to see the numbers on that, right? Someone has some numbers, I'm sure, even if it's just on the side as an interest, right? How many people are still buying these things to play with versus, on your point, as an investment or at putting it in a display case, wanting it still beautiful and all those things, still carded up, and all the rest of it. It's a tough one for me, right? But I can see the mentality, but it's not a collector's mentality.
No, it's not. It's the bottom line. And Dwayne says there were rare occasions that I would buy early bird figures from Kenner that came in a box, like the Emperor, but that was special. You had to collect those. Yeah. So that is a whole different ball game. If you're talking about the early bird and you're talking about having to mail in that card and actually get that stuff, I think that one of those early birds just sold for like 10 grand that was in good condition. That is a whole different ball game.
I still have my Emperor and my Boba Fett very well played with, right? That I both bought with the box tops.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what Dwayne is talking about. So
that's a very different deal, right? You know what I mean? That's a completely different thing. But I'm talking about vintage collection figures that you pay. So this is one that I'm pulling up for reference. What if this was just a box? And here's the other thing that's going to bother me. How many fakes are going to be sold on eBay using a fucking cardboard front? There are going to be so many fakes that are going to be sold. It's going to be rampant. It's going to be a massive problem. And there are going to be fake accounts that pop up and they're going to say, oh, we got this measly $26. And then you get it and you open it up and it's something that you don't like, okay, well, if I'd have seen the figure, I would have known. But now, how the hell are you going to know? The only way you can verify is if you take the figure out of the box and then show the figure, and now it's an opened figure.
Not only is there no way for you to know as the purchaser, there's potentially no way for the seller to know unless they purchased it firsthand from the source, right? Because now this problem gets compounded XYZ number of times because you don't know the chain of custody of that thing that you're now buying online, whereas previously you'd be able to at least see what it was. Now, for all you know, the person is completely honestly trying to sell you what they think is in there, but because they can't see what's in there either, and they bought it from some other schlep, right? They don't know. It adds in so much. It adds in so many problems that it almost makes me wonder: is another secondary reason for doing so an attempt to eliminate the resale market?
Secondary sale market.
Because now you can only.
I didn't even go that deep, dude. That's a thought. That's a real thought.
You can only buy it from the first chain of custody, right? You can only buy it from the authorized distributor.
So this is an interesting thought. So this is how you make money as a company from collectors like me. Okay. You say never remove from box. It's a George Lucas Stormtrooper. I guarantee you this is going to be worth money at some point. I bought 3 so I could take one out, and there's another one sitting for a giveaway. That's how you make money, right? I bought 3 so I could give one away, take one out of the box, and then stick another one on my wall. That's how you make money. Now, if this was just something that was in a cardboard box, I would buy 2. I'd take one out, and then I would throw the other one in the garbage because I don't care.
Again, you would have to buy 2 from the real place. Or a real place, of which we've just talked about. There are few and far between real places.
But even then, you go to buy it online from a secondary seller, and you're like, how do I know? How do I know?
I would no longer call that a real place.
It's not a collectible anymore. It's a fucking risk.
Correct. And you would only then be able to buy it from a reseller for someone who has taken it out and can show it to you, and then it's
confirmed.
It's eliminated its value for you.
No longer an unopened collectible at that point.
Correct. And again, that's why I say, for me personally, all the reasons why I think they're doing this has nothing to do with the collector's mindset. So either they should supplement their availability with a collectible that still has a limited number of these things that can be validated and can be shown off on someone's display cases or whatever, or they're going to realize very quickly that their sales are going to drop because all of a sudden people are going to stop collecting.
There was a massive argument in like that live chat when they announced it, and people are like, you're still going to buy it. And I'm like, I think I'm going to go to the secondary market. Honestly, like, I'm having just as much fun collecting the original TPM line as I am new vintage collection stuff. And actually, it's cheaper. It's cheaper than the new stuff, which is, I mean, rest in peace to my original Comtech line, but they're selling for like $7 a figure. I'm like, fuck, I'll buy those. I'll just buy those. I'm happy. You know, it brings me back to my childhood. Darth Wizzy says, give it to me, X-Wing. I'll just PayPal for you. I'm tired of waiting here in Canada. Bleh. I think I pre-ordered these figures in September of last year.
You and I did the same time. I looked back at it, was like it's early September, but yes, September.
Yeah, and then they were like, didn't they say they were going to be here in like June or something
May
ridiculous?
the 4th. They were supposed to be May the 4th.
That's right. Yeah, they were supposed to bring them to us May the 4th, and then they were like, oh, by the way, denied. See you in July, and then we got to
then they made it August, and then
it was August. That's what it was. Yeah, they said they were going to be here in August, and then they were like, psych, just kidding. We'll have it to you in a week.
I got my Amazon shipment first, and then I finally just got my shipment from Hasbro today, actually.
Amazon beat them. I got all 3 of mine from Amazon. They showed up.
Amazon beat Hasbro by 3 days. 4 days, yeah.
Fucking Hasbro. Fucking HasLab. Fucking Has sucks. All right. Well, This has been a wonderful, wonderful late night. I want to thank my co-host, MOFF Rissman. Thank you so much for being here, buddy. I appreciate you spending your time with me. I love Toy Talk.
No, this
Toy
is
Talk
great.
is like Toy Talk is some of my favorite, man. It's
awesome.
It's what I do. It's my thing. I don't know if you see behind me. Huh?
I know. You know this.
I really like Star Wars.
That's why we're here. That's why we're here.
But I appreciate you being here. I know everybody else here in the chat does as well. Thank you so much, everybody in the chat, for showing up tonight. I can't tell you how much it means for you being here to listen to these two old white cis males yell about Star Wars for an hour and a half. I appreciate it a lot. Stay tuned because we're going to have some more. Thanks for being here, and may the Force be with you always.